All right. Good morning. How are you? Freilich and Hanukkah. Guten Chodesh. Today is the first day of Tevis, the second day of Rosh Chodesh Tevis, seventh day of Hanukkah, 5779. It's the yard site of my holy ancestor, the Chavos Yoyer, who I always, there was something about him that always struck me, and when I learned it, an anecdote of his about 2 years ago, I learned that it really, I've grown very, very, trying to make a kesher to this ancestor, trying to, in a intellectual way, not in any spooky way. I mean, in a, studying his writings and so forth, and in an emotional way, particularly the hymns that he saw fit to have printed from his father and his grandfather. I want to apologize for last night's video. I don't know what that was. I was not feeling so well. Now I'm feeling a little bit better. Not 100%, but a little bit better. So, all that being said, there's certain things I want to discuss today. One thing is, Hanukkah is the season of chinuch, and there's a lot of things we can talk about here. I should have gotten gas here. I went to this one place that usually was cheaper, and today it really wasn't, but whatever it was, I need to get some gas. I didn't want to go the whole way to work and then get stuck or with this and that. Gas prices are not as easy to predict as they used to be. Which one's cheap, which one's expensive. There used to be certain patterns. And now they're getting confusing. These people are supposed to go. That's how it is. I have a yield and they don't. And I wanted to discuss a certain issue. Erev Shabbos, I translated a Dvar Torah from my Rebbe, from Kalavar Rebbe. I believe it will be published today, the translation. The original Hebrew was published on Friday. And it's discussing the attacks against our chinuch. And it's fascinating that the Kalavar Rebbe is a brilliant person, and he's not a fundamentalist. He is a very frum tzaddik, but he is very, very practical. And for him to say the things that he says in this Dvar Torah show that he put a lot of thought into them. Not like me, I'm very emotional, and I will say something, oh, you're a communist, you're this or that, you're a Zionist, you're this or that, whatever it is, and just, as one person says, ad hominem attack. It's not really ad hominem. If I say it's because it's not about, oh, you're a communist and you can't do tshuva. It's against communism, and you can do tshuva, you can repent from that sin of communism, but Zalman Schechter, he used to talk, not Solomon Schechter, Zalman Shlomi Schechter, he used to talk about, there was one Yid, he would come to him and he said, I'm a socialist, but not for Marx, but for Isaiah, or I'm a socialist for Micah. And he said before every year he'd have something, and in the end he would always ask him Zalman for a quote or something. And he said the last year he said he was a socialist for Rabbi Akiva or something like that. I don't know what it was, or for Hillel. I don't remember. But and I'm not a socialist. I'm very much a libertarian more than anything else. Not particularly a capitalist as much as I really believe that government serves us best by the rule of law, and otherwise leaving alone people who are law-abiding citizens, and not just trying to seek ways to pick on people. I mean, everyone, they say, you know, Donald Trump, everything he's involved in, it's just ad hominem attacks that he makes against other people. The attacks against Donald Trump are the true ad hominem attacks. Because Donald Trump is not an ideologue. In fact, in many social issues, he's quite liberal. But he's practical. And yet they attack him personally, and not for his, you know, all of the policies that he's done that people don't like. Well, Obama had the same things, and yet they were praised for it. So this is pure ad hominem, the attacks against the president. I mean, again, I've pointed this out many times. President Trump is probably the most pro-gay president we've ever had, because he doesn't care. It's not an issue to him. He's a New Yorker, liberal New Yorker, and his, you know, ideology and his lifestyle. He doesn't care what people do, and that has nothing to do with what America's about. And yet somehow the Christian right and the Jewish right, who believe that homosexuality is a sin, have very little problem with that, almost no problem with that aspect of I wouldn't say homosexuality as a state of being. In my ideology, there's no such thing as a state of being of homosexuality. It's a state of doing. That's how I understand Scripture. But the state of doing is sinful in certain cases. In other cases, I want to talk about gray areas, this and that. It's all pretty much sinful. But, you know, how do you understand something? You know, but then sin is sin, and sin means we're imperfect. And yet God still loves us as long as we are. God still loves us no matter what. But He wants what's best for us, and what's best for us is to be humble and penitent and recognize if we're engaged in sin, and try to fix it. And you know, but realize that sometimes it's only God can really change us. Is that, which I understand that sounds very Christian. And you know, I know in Islam they talk about how that Christian view, you know, emasculates us, and that to say that we don't have power to conquer sin. But that being said, you know, and Islam and in a certain sense Judaism say, you know, we can be better, but Christianity also says that the fruits of grace are a less sinful life. So it's not the way that we tend to paint it. You know, there is the expectation. It's not like, oh, all these people, you know, someone could be a Nazi, but they believed in Jesus, so they profess with their lips as such, so they're going to heaven, and then the Jews are going to hell. That's not Christianity. I'm sorry. You know, maybe, I mean, that might be Hitler's form of what he called positive Christianity, which is not really Christianity, you know, but but and that's not even really so much what that was about. There were other aspects of what he called positive Christianity. Although Hitler many times said he wanted to return to the old pagan Norse gods and forget about these Jewish gods of Christianity. But we can put that aside for now. That's not what I want to talk about right now. I don't even remember how did I get to here. But the point is that still we accept the president because what he's doing for America is good. What he's doing for the world is good. And that is the cause of liberty and freedom. I mean, I was very uncomfortable with Donald Trump, the candidate. But I'm very, very comfortable with Donald Trump, the president. And the moment that really changed it for me, even though I voted for him, it was more like I was voting against Hillary. In 2020, I cannot think of a candidate who would run, who I would vote for in a primary against the president. I do not believe that Ted Cruz would run. I would vote for Ted Cruz. I understand that he's supportive of the president. I would love for Austin, or what's that guy's name, Peterson, for him to be in government somewhere. But I'm happy that Mr. Hawley won anyway there in Missouri. And I hope some point we will have an Austin Peterson, even though he's an atheist or a secularist, whatever it is, but he's a libertarian secularist. He's not here to make us all secular. He wants to make us all free, which doesn't mean just to be a free thinker, and that means a free thinker means that you're not religious, but then you can't accept the possibility of religion because you're somehow a free thinker. You know, that's the atheist, stance. Oh, here I'm a free thinker because I don't believe in all this religious stuff. This is really what I want to get to in a different sense. But still, the moment that changed it for me with President Trump was when he said, this isn't just a movement of power from one regime to the next, from one administration to the next. This is a restoration of the power to the people. That's what it's supposed to be. I'm excited to see what's going to happen in a certain way once the Democrats are seated in the House, and how Donald Trump will perhaps work with them in the way that Bill Clinton worked with Newt Gingrich. I think that's going to be exciting, because I think he can do it, because he's the master of the art of the deal. He presents this persona that I think is really well calculated, but that's not really what I want to talk about today. But the Kalaver Beschließe, ich habe Vorschläge bereine mit Moshe Berezel. He was discussing the attacks against religious freedom now, particularly with education, and he said, for decades we had a status quo, and now all of a sudden they're attacking our schools, and as he said, his son-in-law is a Visions Rebbe in London. He said they had the same problem in London. They have a much worse problem in London. And it's been going on for a few years. And what he says is that the claim, and this was the same thing that the Greeks were claiming, or the Hellenists and the Hellenizers were claiming in the time of Hanukkah, is that this is for your own good. We're rescuing you from yourselves. You're not smart enough to make your own decisions. You're not. Your ways are too old-fashioned. Let's find something new. And our ways are better than yours. And we're going to rescue you from yourselves, which is what the left is constantly trying to do. I mean, these are the types of things that are going on, especially in places like New York City. And you know, there's attacks on Bris Milah, constant attacks on religious freedom. And the government's saying, well, that's what we're here for, to protect you from yourselves. You know, you can't buy a 20-ounce cup of soda because that's not healthy. And we got to teach you that it's not healthy to buy a 20-ounce cup of soda. That type of nonsense. Whereas, and they're like, well, nothing's to stop you from buying 2 10-ounce cups of soda. I mean, the thing is, usually a 20-ounce cup of soda might cost at the movie theater or something. I don't know. I'm just giving a number because I don't really know. I'd say it's like $5 for the 20-ounce and $3 for the 10-ounce. So now it's going to be $6 for the 2 10-ounces. So, you know. That type of thing. Anyway, the Rebbe points out that we all know the story of the dreidel, whether it's historically true or not. Most likely, I mean, one of my rebbeim was a big Rosh Yeshiva from Antwerp, who I was very close with when I was a Rebbe in Richmond. Big tzaddik Nister. Now he lives in New Jersey. He told me that actually this was the whole story of the dreidel, and it probably wasn't the dreidel like we have now, but whatever it is. But historically, most likely went back to the 5th century when the Zoroastrians, I don't remember, the King Yezgavred or something, was a Zoroastrian king who was that's why we say Shema during Musaf on Shabbos, why we say Shema before Korbanos and things, because the Zoroastrians are dualists, and even though for centuries Jews lived in peace under Zoroastrian rule, when they became fundamentalists in that time, in the 5th century of the Common Era, is when this group that for years were our friends, you know, Cyrus, Koresh, was a Zoroastrian. And he was considered to be a messianic figure. He's called in scripture Mashiach, a non-Jew, a member of a different religion, with a very strongly different theology than ours. And yet scripture called him Mashiach, called him Messiah, anointed by God. And the truth was, we fared far better under the Zoroastrians than we did under the Babylonians. That's just history. But anyway, there was a point in history where it was different. And so too with every religion that we've interacted with throughout the years. not every religion, but many of the religions, whether it was Christianity, Islam, we had times when we lived well under Muslims and not so well. We have times like now when we live well under Christians, other times not so well. And it's not to blame the church or the mosque, but rather the individuals. And it's not an issue of the faith as much as the people who are hijacking their faith and committing political crimes in the name of their faith, and making their own faith look bad. But anyway, the story that we all know with the dreidel is that, when if the Hellenist soldiers would come in the caves and see the people who were trying to learn Torah, instead they were playing dreidel, and playing dreidel, it's a game of chance. It's not even a game of skill. It's not a athletic game. So you can't say you're building your muscles athletically or you're sharpening your wits mentally. Just a game. In fact, probably the only thing it can teach you is to have faith in God, because God is the only. It's a mazel tov, that's what we say. It's we leave things up to chance in the hands of God. Let go and let God, and that's really the only lesson. But other than that, it's essentially a waste of time. You're not getting exercise. You're not getting any intellectual stimulation. And yet our enemies were very happy to see us wasting time playing a game, as long as we were not engaging in Torah study. And the Rebbe points out that he's seen himself the difference between yeshiva students and public school students, particularly now, he said, with the technology. Now, it goes without saying here, the Rebbe gains so much from technology. I mean, he wouldn't be able to communicate without technology. He sends his Divrei Torah out on emails. But the point that he's making is that there is a proper use and an improper use of technology, and we're all guilty. I'm guilty of improper uses myself and wasting time and so forth. But that being said, specifically they didn't want us to be studying Torah. But they didn't care if we were playing dreidel. Whether that's a true story or not, the point is there. It's the same thing now. I went to public school. I can't tell you how many times they just put on the Mighty Ducks or Cool Runnings and didn't teach us anything. I probably learned more from watching The Simpsons than from 9 years of public school education. And The Simpsons is a very educational show if you pay attention. And it's very thought-provoking. I would not consider watching The Simpsons as a waste of time. It's not like playing dreidel. It's almost more like watching Jeopardy, which sharpens your mind to a certain extent, if you're engaged in it. Again, it's not like learning Torah. Not in any way, shape, or form, but it is, except when they quote things from Torah, which they do once in a while. Last episode, they had a character saying morning brachas, bracha pokech ivrim. Thank God for opening our eyes. I think that's important to think about and contemplate. What kind of message is in that? even if the writers were not aware of why they specifically picked that bracha. Hakol b'dei Shemayim. Everything's in the hands of heaven. Anyway. So, what goes on in the public schools, They waste time constantly. Busy work, nonsense. They say, well, there's only, in the really former yeshivos, there's only, 2-3 hours a day of English. Well, that's because we get done what we got to get done. We don't waste time. Well, it's busy work. We teach the kids what they need to learn. We give them the opportunity. And that's all we got to do. We've got better things to do. We got more important things to do. And yes, Torah study is more important. That Torah study is an aspect of your eternal soul, and this is Chayei Shah, which is important. It's not nothing, but it has a time and a place, and that's it. You don't need to waste time watching Disney movies from the 90s. That's what we did. It was the 90s, but that's what we did. How many times they showed us? I think The Lion King, and they showed us, and then so in music class they showed us Amadeus, and probably they showed us that like 5-6 times. Because the teacher. Now the teacher would probably be playing with the phone. While showing. And the thing is, I did that too. I taught in Chabad in the Cheder, and and I showed them videos, but Torah-dika videos. The Rambam and the Ramban, the videos from Barrel Wine, Harav Barrel Wine, Shlita. Good videos. Very worthwhile to watch those. So I think I'm going to be on time today. So the thing is. So don't, like the Satmar Rebbe said last week, don't start lecturing us. Fix your own schools. Now it's much, much worse than it was, Talk about how things were in the 90s. And to me, I was talking about something, and I waste time when I watch TV and movies and stuff, I'm no saint. But like we were watching last night, Lost in Space, and like I was talking about, we were talking about Lost in Space, and like I was like, there was a new Lost in Space, and I was like, but wait a second, that was like 1998, the new Lost in Space. I never saw it. Now there's actually a new Lost in Space, I think, on Netflix. I haven't seen that either. I'm not that interested in it anyway, but it's just, it's a good outlet, but it's just a little strange. Now that being said, people are going to ask, well, wait a second, the Rambam knew secular studies, and today I'm celebrating the yahrzeit of my ancestor, the Chavos Yair. He was knowledgeable in secular studies, although then he spoke about his regrets. He said, wasting time studying astronomy when he could have been, studying Torah. He writes about that. But that being said, I think there's something else we should be aware of. We often hear it said that we are not allowed to study Kabbalah until we reach the age of 40. Now that's impossible, because some of our greatest Kabbalists didn't live to be 40. The Uriah Kaddish was about 36 years old, I think, when he passed away. So too Reb Nachman Breslover. So too the Ramchal. So what does that mean? Obviously, it's not true. That and what the Chaim Vital says actually is that you have to be 20 and married and have learned Gemara for at least 5 years. You didn't have to finish Shas. Just have learned for at least 5 years Gemara, meaning you start learning Gemara when you're 15, and then when you're 20, or maybe a little earlier than that, and then when you're 20, you can start learning Kabbalah. But so in the Shach and the Taz, a few other places, it says that you shouldn't learn Chochmas until you're 40, until you've been Arboyim. And Chochmas, would some Mefarshim say, I don't remember where it was, it's been years since I saw this, means secular studies. Meaning until you're 40, you should be focusing on Torah study. And then once you're 40, then you can start learning, history and science and things. I mean, math, the thing is, all those things are in Torah anyway, but I'm saying outside of Torah, to learn secular studies. You shouldn't, once you're 40, then you can start learning secular studies. That's, the question is, how do you make a living? You learn what you have to learn to make a living, but then, once you're 40 and it's assumed you've been learning Torah most of your life, and you've mastered Torah, and you're still learning every day and every night for hours. But you want to have a little time to study Chochmas, to study astronomy, to study something like this, which also is needed for Torah. That's what it is. So, not to say that these tzaddikim waited till they were 40 to learn these chachmas, but the point I was saying is that they most likely started learning a lot of these things later in life, and their main study as children was Torah study. And maybe, you do. I don't see any problem dedicating a few hours. Now the question is, what about some of the boys who don't have Sitzfleisch? I think it might be worthwhile to give them some more secular learning. And the issue is, then, are you creating two different societies? Are you dividing people up? And these are things to consider. Meaning, I know, like in certain modern day schools, and you have a more Haredi element who joins the community. And the question is, do we make, maybe within the same school, do we make two different groups? One is the yeshivish group, and one is the modern group, and things like that. And I know Rabbi Fishbane told me they asked Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, Zecher Tzaddik V'Kodesh L'Vracha, and he said absolutely not. He said we have to be all together. There has to be unity. But and this is an issue that I'm working on at work right now, with other religions. How do we find balances with these things? But these are questions that we have to look into and discuss and so forth. But Hanukkah, I think, we have a lot of big lessons to discuss here. And but the most important thing really is not about even what the Rebbe said about wasting time, but also about who we're dealing with. What do we, what's the end game here? Because I think really the end game. So what the Rebbe says is that they're jealous. The Gemara says that Mount Sinai is called Sinai because of sinah, because of jealousy. They're jealous of us for that. Why do we get the Torah? And And it's that kind of attitude of like, these kids are better behaved, even though they say we're not, but it's not true. And they don't want us to be superior to them. So instead of them lifting themselves up, which they should do, like the Koreans, they learn Gemara to make themselves better. They want to make us worse. That's what the Kalavar Rebbe said. That's not my thing. I wouldn't say such a thing. I'd be scared to say such a thing. But I'm not scared to quote my Rebbe. So to quote a big tzaddik like Kalavar Rebbe, who's unique among tzaddikim. Again, and what's the superiority? It's not that we are inherently superior. They could all be Megayer. They could all join us. And if they really want to lift themselves up, it's like, there's a story of a ger who asked the Rambam, he said, why did you only write certain books in Arabic? Why didn't you write the Mishnah Torah in Arabic? Then I could learn it. And the Rambam said, no. Even those books I should have written in Hebrew. You got to learn Hebrew. I don't have to go down to you. You have to come up to us. It's not racist, because anybody could do it. You know, at least that's what I believe. Anybody could do it. You could do it. It doesn't matter. You're born Jewish, not born Jewish, this, that. You could do it. Don't give up. Well, God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and all the best. Take care.